there, my beautiful internet friends. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I truly appreciate it. I'm gonna be sharing with you guys a story today that I have not told publicly, I don't think, not in depth. I've hinted at it before because it's like, to me, it's a very crazy story of a time, actually the first time I went to see a counselor after I had experienced something traumatizing. And the way that they responded to me, in retrospect, is laughable because it's so bad. It's so traumatizing and a horrific way to respond to someone in the situation that I was in. But I think it is important to tell the story for a number of reasons. I've recently been talking on my channel a lot about purity culture. I know many of you guys know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, purity culture is the percentage of the evangelical conservative Christian church's way of teaching about gender and sexuality and gender roles and relationships and all of that. And it is very toxic. I think the church as a whole is not toxic. Most people I know are people of faith. I am a person of faith myself, but purity culture in particular teaches some really horrifying things. There's a link down below if you're curious about some of the specifics of this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and dive into the story. But first, thank you to all of my patrons who recently joined the Dismantling Purity Culture group. I cannot tell you how much that means to me. If you're interested in supporting this kind of content about this kind of topic in particular, check out the page. I'd really appreciate it. And again, thank you to everyone who's already joined. So the year was 2011, and as many of you guys know, I had just been sexually assaulted, and it didn't just happen once, it happened more than once, but this particular instance with this person finally registered with me as, oh my god, something really bad happened to me. That was not right. Like, I said no a bunch, things happened anyways. Is that okay? I don't feel like that's okay. My brain had finally gotten to this point of accepting that something was horribly wrong in this relationship and I needed to get out. But I was still having a lot of trouble believing that it could be that bad. I was thinking, oh, you know, he's a broken, hurting person who just needs love and acceptance and forgiveness, and I shouldn't make his life worse by saying, you know, he did this thing to me, even though he very much did do that thing to me. There was a lot of self-blame and self-doubt, and, well, you know, I knew him, so does it really qualify as rape? You know, because we were dating, so, I mean, can that even really happen? I had a lot of questions, and I hadn't gone into detail with anyone about what had happened to me really just yet. But I told my parents that I needed to see someone. I needed to talk to someone, and my dad, who was fantastic, went and got a referral for a counselor who was highly respected in the church. She'd been working in the church for, I believe it was over 25 years. He obviously didn't know her personally, but he'd been given her name and was like, this should be a good, you know, source, a good resource. And so I went to go see her, and going to see her, if you've ever walked into a counselor's office for any reason, let alone a traumatic one, it takes a lot to actually walk in the door, but I did it. I was like, I know I need help. I know I'm falling apart. I know something really bad has happened to me, but I don't know what to do with it. And so I sat down and I went through the story of what happened. About how I knew this guy. We'd kind of been dating on and off for just about a year, and I had gone down to see him in Pueblo and spent a couple days down there, but made it very clear that we weren't going to be sleeping together, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I went through the whole story and then told her how one of the mornings that I was there, the last morning that I was there, he had sexually assaulted me. And I explained the details of what happened, but I was very confused internally on what that actually was. Like, I needed an authority figure to look at the details and be like, yes, Joe, that's sexual assault. That was not okay. And instead, what I got, swear to God, hand on a Bible, this is what happened. She told me, well, yes, what you experienced is rape. Now, here's what I think you need to do. You were impure outside of marriage because you, as in me, had sex outside of marriage, even though what she was referring to as sex outside of marriage was being sexually assaulted. And her solution for this was for him and I to come in together as a couple, for my rapist to come in with me, for us to sit down and chat with her about, you know, sexual boundaries before marriage. And then she wanted me to sign a contract. I don't know who the contract was with, but she wanted me to sign a contract saying I would not have sex again outside of marriage. And as I was heading out the door, as we were ending our session, she said, don't worry, honey, I don't think you're beyond hope. I think we can, like, help bring you back. There's so many things that are horribly wrong with this response and with this situation. During the course of her explaining explaining to me what had happened to me, she also mentioned it's really, you know, as a Christian girl, you shouldn't be alone with men. I mean, you should know better than that. You shouldn't have done that. But I mean, yes, what he did was rape, but you were at his house. So there was a lot of victim blaming that was intertwined into all of this. But keep in mind that this was like 2 weeks out. I don't even think it was 2 weeks. I think it was like a week and a half out from what had happened to me. I was a fragile, confused mess. And she was sitting there telling me to come to therapy with my rapist. I still can't believe that that's really what happened, but it is, to sign a contract to be sexually pure until marriage, and that we should come in together and get some counseling together to, you know, repair the relationship. I will forever be grateful that when I walked out of her office and I sat in my car, there was just enough of me that thought, I don't think what she said is right. I think something isn't right here. I think the biggest reason for that at that time is because she said, yes, he raped you, and also I think you guys should come to counseling together, and also this is your fault. There were just so many details in what this therapist had told me that I was uncomfortable with what she said. I believed a lot of it, but there were just enough red flags that I started talking to other people, and thankfully I got a really fantastic trauma-based licensed counselor after that who did an amazing job of helping me work through things for years. But aside from the fact that how she responded to me was absolutely horrendous by blaming me, by suggesting that I come in with my rapist. I've said that like 3 times, but that's still like so appalling to me. By suggesting I should sign a contract not to be impure outside of marriage again, even though that wasn't what I chose to do. And then, you know, lastly, that she didn't think I was beyond hope. Those things illustrate the effects of purity culture and this whole mindset. It's the reason why I'm so passionate in talking about this, because it's insidious and it's toxic. The things that I was taught all throughout high school, all throughout the developmental years of learning about gender and sexuality and relationships, all come into play in her response, and it makes sense. If she was coming from that kind of a mindset, her response to me makes perfect sense. I think what this situation really clearly illustrates is how much value is placed on sexual purity and virginity versus much deeper, more complex, real issues. This counselor was more concerned about the fact that I had had sex outside of marriage by someone else forcing that on me than she was concerned for anything about me. Because I was now impure in her eyes, she didn't think I was beyond hope, like she thought she could maybe help in redeeming me. And the idea that I should come to counseling with this person who had committed this atrocious crime against me and also been very abusive for months is not that surprising when I think about what purity culture teaches. It teaches that it's your fault if something happens to you because you must be dressing immodestly, you must be asking for it in some way because it's your responsibility as a woman to always keep yourself pure, so outside factors don't matter, right? Well, they do matter, but they discount them. In purity culture, and men, if you're listening to this and you were raised in this culture, please add your voice to this conversation because I'd love to hear from you. But to a large extent, men are taught, and we're taught about men, that they are these sexual creatures that basically cannot control themselves in certain situations. And so they're given a pass when it comes to things like sexual assault and abuse because they're men. I mean, that's what they do, and you were probably doing something to provoke it. You were probably, you shouldn't have been there anyways, literally, like she told me. Or you were, dressing immodestly, which people literally told me. And for the record, it was sweatpants and a loose t-shirt. So please explain to me how that's immodest. I don't know. I hope you know that on this channel, I care just as much about male victims of sexual assault and domestic violence and abuse and non-binary people and women all the same. I don't think gender matters when it comes to someone who's been hurt, but in purity culture, there's so much stress and emphasis upon gender, which is why I'm talking about this in very male-female terms. I know that it goes both ways, but to be totally honest with you, I wasn't that far from believing everything that she said and seeking therapy from her because it was in line with everything I'd ever been taught about myself, about my role in society, about my role in relationships and my gender. And it took a long time to recognize how wrong those things were. So if I haven't stressed enough in recent videos, this is one of the big reasons that I care about the effects of purity culture, because I am by no means the only person affected by it. So many other people are. No one should have to go to a counselor and be met with that response. No one should ever talk to a friend and be told those things. No one should have to feel that way, but unfortunately, a lot of people do. Thinking back on this whole situation, it was such a bizarre scenario to be a part of, to be walking outside her office, like as I was leaving, and her telling me that she didn't think I was beyond hope because I had come to her because someone had done something horrible to me. That's like laughable, but it's also, like I said, heartbreaking. I also think this is a good example of how sometimes counselors just suck. Sometimes they are not good, and sometimes it takes a little while to find someone who works well for you. It took a lot to want to go to try to see another counselor after that experience, but I am incredibly grateful that I gave it a shot, because getting counseling was life-saving to me at that point in my life. I'm really grateful for the people in my life who did not say those things to me, who did not believe those things, or at least did not preach them at me, who listened to me and were real sources of support. I don't think I would have made it through any of that without them. Yeah, so that's my story of a really bad counselor, a really bad counseling experience, and one that I'm grateful I never have to actually go through again. Thank you guys so much for listening. It means the world to me. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I do have a Patreon page that is dedicated specifically to recovering from purity culture, has more videos like this, exclusive content and resources. We're having live streams coming up, so if that's something you're interested in participating in, hop over to the link on the screen to check it out. It's also below in the description box, but obviously there is no pressure at all. I hope this isn't something you have experienced. If it is, you're really, really not alone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending a few minutes out of your day here with me today. I really appreciate you listening to my little stories and caring enough to hang out with me for a few minutes. I love you guys. I'm thinking about you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.